My least favourite TDS rework. It's Pursuit. Pursuit is the worst TDS rework. In my opinion, every time I see Pursuit being used, or I'm told to bring it, I oblige. But I really hate using it. Pursuit rework has always been a strange case to me. Compared to previous Pursuit, it now has a reload and relocate ability. The reload is really weird. First, it's a tower that never reloaded in the first place. Secondly, there's no visual indication that it reloads, unlike literally every tower that has the orange bar, and it just doesn't add anything. Third thing, but it kinda goes into my second point, is that every tower that has the orange bar actually uses it. Cowboy gives money, Engineer builds sentries, Necromancer builds graves, Accel is kind of the entire tower. There's at least a reason it exists, but per Pursuit, it just arbitrarily stops attacking for no reason. It's like if they randomly made Militant have a reload animation, which adds nothing besides cap the DPS. Oh wait. It also just feels like an excuse to give it even more cracked stats under the excuse that it reloads. Top Path Max Pursuit would do about 300 DPS, but if you take into account the reload, it does about 260 DPS. Relocate ability is whatever, it's a helicopter tower, but Brawler already did the relocate thing, so it's kinda just Brawler but as a ranged tower and fully buffed by supports. You said top path, what does that mean? Good question, Timmy. You may have wondered why I said Pursuit top path, because no towers in TDS have multiple paths, but Pursuit is the only tower in the game to have 2 paths. But you're never gonna use bottom path, ever. Here's the question, would you rather top path, fully buffed by supports, more DPS, and hidden detection, or bottom path, isn't fully buffed by supports, less DPS, and no hidden detection? This is a very hard question because it's actually top path. I know, it's a very hard decision to make. But bottom path has way better missiles. Mortar, Rocketeer, Military Base, Electroshocker, even Trapper. You have 5 slots for a reason. Honestly, you can't really fix it because it takes a very long time to balance, and it's kind of just an inherent issue with top and bottom upgrade paths, especially when TDS literally never did it before. I mean, I guess you could split both paths, but that sounds kinda stupid. There's no visual difference between top path and bottom path, besides tier 4 randomly looking different. If you can actually see a difference and try to correct me, you play TDS for an unhealthy amount of time. Not like that really matters, because you're not really going to use bottom path like we said. Lower levels just use a generic military green compared to the bright blue before. Now, default looking meh wouldn't be an issue because skins exist, right? Right? But Pursuit doesn't have any skins. Oh. They literally have multiple Pursuit skins in their backlog, but they never added any of them. This tower went through several balance changes, an entire rework, only to never get a skin. Pursuit became objectively the best tower in the game due to infinite range, stun immunity, fully affected by buffs, and the highest base DPS. Compared to before the rework, where it was a really good damage dealer, but very situational and unreliable, I just liked using it more, to be honest. I'm not saying it didn't deserve a rework, but I don't like how it's been executed. Pursuit has stun immunity, which I don't really like, and freeze immunity. What enemy freezes? Oh right, Frost Spirit. There isn't a single doubt in my mind that the recent TDS modes, especially Frost Invasion, have been balanced around Pursuit being overpowered. When Frost Invasion released, they made a special accommodation for Pursuit that gave it freeze immunity. And also, Pursuit is the only one that has that freeze immunity. Not even the freeze towers, who are accustomed to being exposed to very low temperatures. But why freeze immunity? Can't normal stun immunity work? What about medic? I don't know how to tell you this, but stun immunity is completely useless. And medic is also completely useless. You hear that, right? The Powercreep alarms. Let's go! Party! Make the clickbait videos to bastardize the term. We can send balancing discussion back another 5 years. I feel like I'm the only person to point this out. Frost Invasion probably would have never turned out this way if it wasn't for Pursuit and most towers that were released during 2025 having stun immunity. There's also stuff like Solo Hardcore being much easier after Pursuit got reworked. More so than Gatling Gun, I'd say. But Solo Hardcore was always possible and it was always just a poorly designed mode. Wasn't Accelerator required, because it did literally everything? There's a difference between Accelerator being required and Pursuit being required. With Accelerator, you have other DPS options. Mini can out-DPS Accel with enough numbers, especially in solo and duo. Ranger has way more range and can keep damaging the boss long after towers like Mini and Accel stop attacking. Turret is completely immune to debuffs like Wok's jump scare, and way more range. Engineer has the highest raw DPS, but is unable to be buffed by supports, so what you see is what you get. Pre-rework Pursuit had a lot of cons, but if you had something to cover those cons, it was the best DPS option. In fact, before the rate of fire bug got fixed, Turret and Accel were pretty much interchangeable with each other. The only time you needed Accelerator wasn't even because he was overpowered, it was just because you needed to bring as many DPS options as possible, and there wasn't really any DPS options to pick from. Post-rework Pursuit has the pros of pretty much every tower. The infinite range of Brawler and Ranger, the DPS of Accelerator, the ability to be fully buffed unlike Accel and NG, and complete stun immunity, with pretty much none of the downsides from the towers it took from. The only downside is that it's expensive. But when you consider what you're getting, and considering how spammy the waves are and certain enemies, plus cost efficiency is a pretty meh argument anyways. They pretty much made Pursuit into objectively the best tower with the rework, and I don't like it, and also it's not that healthy for the game. I have the same opinion as Ranger, but a lot tamer and you can actually make him balanced. With Pursuit you can't really do much. I just prefer pre-rework Pursuit. I don't know what else to say. Maybe make the gap between top and bottom path smaller, and just nerfing the DPS in general. It has infinite range, you might as well actually use it and balance it around said infinite range. Like I said, there's basically no reason to use any DPS tower if there's a tower that does the same DPS, but with stun immunity and infinite range with no additional cost. Hardcore rework and PvP are going to be the biggest updates to TDS, but they have the potential to be ruined if something like this isn't kept in check. Similar thing happened with Gatling, but there was a somewhat reasonable argument that there was a very high level tower and the cost was very expensive. So you could say it was meant to be more of a fun tower than anything, which doesn't really help it that much, but you can't use the same argument for Pursuit. I just don't really like Pursuit rework and how it was executed, and I don't really have any way to close the video, so bye bye.